Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming. I appreciate you all, guys, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on Rumble. Before I start this live streaming, I will have to make a few disclaimers. The first one is I'm a Syrian migrant living in Germany, married to a German woman. I full heartedly like and love Germany, where I live in, and I am grateful for the German people and for Germany for receiving me when I fled the war-torn country Syria in 2015. And also, I put the German interest in front of my eyes. I put the security of Germany in front of my eyes, and I put the well being of the German people in front of my eyes before I make any comments about any topic that touches Germany. I have nothing but good intentions and goodwill toward Germany. However, when I criticize the German policy, I am criticizing policy makers. Those are individuals, people that can miss or hit. And in my opinion, they are committing a horrible mistake by siding with Israel in this carnage in the Gaza Strip. And I called and I named this video historical irony. First of all, I only wrote history or historical, and then I changed it to historical irony because our friend of Syriana Analysis, Tarek Chiril Amar, who is a historian from Germany, he published also an article, and I saw that the title says historical irony as well. And why historical irony? I will come to that later in this live streaming. I was also speaking to a friend today. He's German, and he posted something on X. He says, "My opinion as a German about what Nicaragua says in The Hague has merit, and it is more than embarrassing and painful that some other country has to remind us of our obligations, especially in a case that has some moral connection to the crimes of World War III." It's also ironic because as we speak, now there is an Israeli flag flying over the Bundestag. The Bundestag is the federal parliament of Germany. The federal parliament of Germany represents the German people. However, they decided that they have to fly an Israeli flag now, today, when Nicaragua took Germany to the ICJ on the allegations that the German government is complicit with the allegations against Israel of committing genocide in the Gaza Strip or having the intention of committing a genocide or violating the Genocide Convention. Since Germany is a signatory of the Genocide Convention, then Nicaragua has taken Germany to the court. Now, when South Africa took Israel to the court a few months ago, and we covered this extensively on Syriana Analysis, Germany didn't come and say, and when I say Germany, the German policymakers, right, didn't come and say, let's wait for the decision of the court. We trust in the judgment of the court. They didn't say that there is two sides of the story. No, they came and said, Israel is not committing genocide, and Israel doesn't have the intention to commit genocide in the Gaza Strip. They categorically rejected these allegations. And not only that, if you remember, the German government not only supported Israel verbally through statements, but also they joined Israel as a third party to defend Israel in the ICJ. So Germany said, this is in January 2024, that it will intervene in ICJ case on Israel's behalf, blasting genocide accusation. So the German government sharply rejected the allegations before the UN's top court that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza and warned against political instrumentalization of the charge. And the government spokesman Stefan Hebestreit says in a statement that Israel was defending itself after the inhumane attacks by Hamas on October 7. He says Germany would intervene as a third party before the ICJ under an article allowing states to seek clarification on the use of a multilateral convention. So Germany decided to come in defense of Israel And not only in defense, legally speaking, in defense, which means if Israel found guilty of violating the Geneva Genocide Convention, that will automatically imply that Germany is complicit with Israel because legally Germany came in defense of Israel. However, it's even deeper than that, unfortunately speaking, and I'm going to come to that in this live streaming. Now, Nicaragua said that Germany, you are being complicit with Israel. You're helping Israel. You're sending weapons to Israel. So Nicaragua, a long-standing supporter of the Palestinian cause, is broadening the legal battle over the Gaza conflict at the International Court of Justice by bringing charges against Germany, a major supplier of arms to Israel. Nicaragua argued that Germany is facilitating the commission of genocide in Gaza and violating the Genocide Convention by providing Israel with military and financial aid. It asks for emergency measures ordering Berlin to halt its wartime support to Israel. Now, lawyers say that Germany, those are the Nicaraguan lawyers, said that Germany, which is Israel's second largest arms provider after the United States, is an easier target for a suit than the United States. I will come to that also, why Germany is easier to bring Germany to the ICJ than the United States. Nicaragua's case is the third before the court this year that deals with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So there was today the hearings of the Nicaraguan defense team, and tomorrow the German side will come also present its case, defending itself against these allegations that Germany is complicit with Israel. And not only that, they will also probably argue that Israel is not actually committing any sorts of heinous acts that could amount to genocide. Now, Nicaragua today presented its case before the ICJ and demanded judges to impose emergency measures to stop Berlin from providing Israel with weapons and other types of assistance. And in the opening statement, Carlos Jose Francisco Arguello Gomez, he is the Nicaraguan ambassador to the Netherlands and the lead of Nicaragua's delegation, he said, I quote, "Serious breaches of international humanitarian law, including genocide, are taking place in Palestine and are being committed openly," according to him. The quotation also continues, "The case before us involves momentous events affecting the lives and well-being of hundreds of thousands of people and even the destruction of an entire people." In such a situation, he said that other states must avoid to take steps assisting the perpetrator. He goes on and says, Germany has violated this obligation imposed on all states, adding that Germany has not cannot be able to has not been able to differentiate between self-defense and genocide in the case of Gaza, because Germany argues that Israel is defending itself in the Gaza Strip, and Nicaragua says that you're not able to differentiate between self-defense and committing genocide, and this is no more about self-defense. Today on Al Jazeera English, Professor Daniel Müller, this is Daniel Müller, and this is very ironic. I should have added also at the beginning in the introduction why it's ironic, because Nicaragua actually hired a German lawyer to represent Nicaragua in the ICJ against Germany. I think this is also ironic. And that his name is Daniel Müller. I salute him. That's why I say Germany is not about the politicians. Germany are different opinions, different political affiliations, and some of them are on the side of the Palestinians in this case, right? Therefore, I want to warn, this is the last time. Look, I'm not able to check all the comments, unfortunately, when I do live streaming. But if I see again a comment that is attacking an entire people, whoever the targeted people are, Germans, Syrians, Jewish people, whatever, X, Y, Z, I will block this person. This is just the last warning. On my channel, I don't tolerate such hatred against people collectively, because Germans are you have respectful people, like, for example, Daniel Müller, who is a German citizen. He holds the German passport. His grandparents are Germans. He's from the family of Müller, which is probably the most named or widespread name in Germany. And he was actually hired by Nicaragua to defend the Nicaraguan team against the German government, which is accused of being complicit in this genocide case. And he told the court, the German lawyer representing the Nicaraguan case, he said, it is a pathetic excuse to the Palestinian children, women, and men to provide humanitarian aid, including through airdrops, on the other hand, and to furnish the military equipment that is used to kill and annihilate them on the other hand. So his argument is, you, the German government, you're sending humanitarian aid, medical aid. Even some of the members of parliaments, they were on the borders with the Gaza Strip, taking selfies and even posting their photos for photo op on social media platforms, saying like, look, I'm so humanitarian, I'm sending aid to the Palestinians in Gaza. But on the other hand, around 30% of the weapons used by Israel against the Palestinians in Gaza are from Germany. And this has to stop, according to the Nicaraguan government, which argued today that the ICJ has to take provisional measures, emergency provisional measures, ordering Germany to stop the delivery of the weapons. And the Nicaraguan government says we cannot wait for the ICJ to rule out and decide whether a genocide is being committed or not, and then ask the German government to stop the delivery of arms. No, we have to stop now because there's a plausible case of genocide according to the ICJ, right? So this was the opinion of the Nicaraguan government. Now, we have a British activist. He apparently made a video for Al Jazeera, and he explains the situation of the German side and the German government's, let's say, position in regards to Israel-Palestine. And let's first listen what he has to say and why the historical guilt of the Germans are the driving force behind the current government's policy toward Israel. Let's take a look.
We should boycott events in Germany because the German state is forcing the Palestinian people to pay for the historic crimes they committed. They're disproportionately targeting Jewish people who speak out despite their own terrible history of targeting Jews, as well as Palestinian and Muslims in Germany disproportionately, and they're using these events and spaces to do so. If they're weaponizing that space, we've got to boycott that space. What the German state has done is force the Palestinian people to pay for the crimes it committed. Within living memory, the German state attempted to exterminate the entire Jewish population of Europe. And there's obviously a very strong argument that after such a crime of such a scale, that reparations should be made. But those reparations did not come in any way at the expense of the German state. They came at the expense of the Palestinian people who were driven from their homes in 1948 en masse, violently so, and then subjected to decades of horrible occupation, colonization, illegal siege, apartheid. We could go on. And, you know, that's involved, for example, German arms companies making a packet from selling arms to Israel, including weapons which have been used, of course, to brutally kill innocent Palestinians, large numbers. And this already hideous phenomenon has only intensified because of the specific, horrific, murderous onslaught against Gaza since 7th of October. And what's happened is Germany has weaponized the space given to the arts, broadly speaking, whether it be writers, performers, artists of various description. When the International Court of Justice, the highest court on earth, has put Israel on trial for alleged genocide, and Germany's even appointed itself as a state to officially help rebut those claims against Israel. That is perverse. I mean, do they think again atoning for their past means going to the aid of a nation accused of genocide? It is the world turned upside down, and Germany cannot be allowed to keep using its sordid and frankly despicable past in order to keep forcing other people to pay for their crimes, to shield another state accused of genocide from scrutiny of its crimes. Germany specifically is weaponizing its past in the most perverse possible way and refusing to learn lessons from its past. And it has to be forced to pay a price. Otherwise, they're going to keep whitewashing Israel's crimes because of what they did.
So, disclaimer, the views expressed in this video are the speakers, not of mine as Kevork Almassian. However, I would like to add that after World War II and after the mass murder of the Jewish people by the Nazi Germany and other European allies, right, who were allied with Germany, and the price, the huge price or the bigger price was paid by the Palestinian people, right? And the German government or the successive German governments, they have been paying reparations for the Jewish people, and totally fair. However, when we speak about a geographical price, the Palestinians paid the biggest price, right? And there were many of the ships who came from Europe, mainly by Great Britain, and delivering the refugees from Europe, especially the Jewish refugees, and they sent them to Palestine. This was after World War I and before World War II and during World War II. And many of them settled there, and this is totally fine. I am, as a Syrian, if there is any refugee coming from a war zone, I am for receiving this refugee. We received hundreds of thousands of refugees from Iraq. We received hundreds of thousands of refugees from Lebanon. We received hundreds of thousands of refugees from Palestine because there were war situations in these countries, right? However, when these refugees arrived, let's suppose the Iraqi refugees came to Syria and they said, now I want part of your country. That doesn't work that way, right? According to the Palestinian narrative, this is our territory, this is my town, and this is my farm. And you, as a refugee coming from Europe, you are not entitled to get my territory here, or slice Palestine into two and then start swallowing and grabbing the rest of my territories. And now you're speaking of completely genociding me. And those are not my words, those are the Israeli officials saying this, right? Calling them human animals, calling for the extermination, calling for dropping nuclear bombs over the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. This has to stop, right? And there is no excuse for the current German government to weaponize this past, and it's a heinous past that they have to pay reparations and also pay the price for it, but not the Palestinians. Palestinians didn't commit the genocide or the Holocaust and the mass murder of the Jewish people. They don't have to pay for that, right? And the trauma that the Jewish people been through because of the Holocaust, it's not the Palestinians that have to pay for that trauma, right? This is just the point that I wanted to make in this regard. Now, just to continue, speaking to reporters after the ICJ hearing in The Hague, German legal representative Tanja von Uslar-Gleichen called Nicaragua's presentation biased and said Germany looks forward to rebutting the charges tomorrow. Nicaragua's presentation was grossly biased, and we will be telling you tomorrow how we fully live up to our responsibilities, said Uslar-Gleichen. In a 43-page submission to the court, Nicaragua argues that Germany is in breach of the 1948 UN Genocide Convention set up in the wake of the Holocaust. By sending military equipment and now defunding UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, Germany is facilitating the commission of genocide, says the commission or the submission. Now, people are asking how long will it take for the ICJ to rule on provisional measures. So, as with South Africa's genocide case against Israel, it will likely take the ICJ years to issue a final ruling on Nicaragua's case against Germany. However, the court is expected to make a preliminary decision ruling on the provisional measures sought by Nicaragua within weeks. So within weeks from now, the ICJ will make provisional measures, emergency provisional measures against or for Germany. Let's see how is the decision going to be. And this could, the decision of the ICJ could be that Germany should stop sending weapons. And in a few years, when they decide that Germany is complicit with genocide, that's going to be really horrible, horrible case against Germany. And this will stay forever because history doesn't forget such cases, right? And this is the issue with this Gaza case, that you cannot really erase what's happening in the Gaza Strip. And if you're aiding and abetting the perpetrator of the horrendous crimes in the Gaza Strip, this will also not be forgotten. Just like the horrible crimes committed during World War II were not, nobody has forgotten them, right? Now, Steph Vesson, she is reporting from The Hague. She says, these past 2 hours must have been very uncomfortable for Germany. 80 years after the Holocaust, the country is in the dock facilitating genocide. The Nicaraguan legal team called it a judicial drama because this is an exceptional, unprecedented case. 2 countries that are not directly involved in the war in Gaza are here at the highest court. They are both signatories of the Genocide Convention, and that's why Nicaragua argues that Germany has its own obligation to fulfill this convention and not facilitate genocide. One of the things that I was thinking about when I was preparing for this live stream, and that is the irony, right? The irony that Western governments, Germany as well, they've been preaching about human rights. They've been preaching about rules-based order. They've been preaching about international law, international humanitarian law. And they've been intervening in other people's affairs, in other countries' affairs, breaching their sovereignty, imposing sanctions, claiming that a ruler A or ruler B or a people A or people B are not really civilized enough, and they are not really committed to the universal principles of human rights, etc., etc. Now that Israel is accused of committing genocide in the Gaza Strip, and the ICJ says that there is a plausible case against Israel, shouldn't Germany be at least a little bit more cautious? I mean, the government, shouldn't they say, look, it's a difficult situation now. Israel is accused of committing genocide, and the ICJ says there's a plausible case against Israel. Like, shouldn't I be a little bit concerned about it? Who is the person advising these politicians? Who is the person telling them, no, you have to go now to the ICJ as a third party and tell them that I'm going to intervene on behalf of Israel and defend Israel and prove to the world that Israel is not committing genocide? Who is this person advising these politicians here? I mean, at least in front of your own people and in front of the international public, you have to come up and say that, look, we will respect the decision of the ICJ and we will respect the decision of the judges because we believe in international law, we believe in the humanitarian law, and we believe that nobody has to commit genocide. And they have to be like France, for example. France said they will respect the decision of the ICJ, whatever is the decision. But Germany said, no, I'm going to come and defend Israel in this case. And now the irony is Germany is taken to the ICJ. So imagine the issue, the severity of the issue. If Israel is found guilty of committing genocide in the Gaza Strip by these judges, then Germany will be considered officially a complicit in committing genocide. And this will stay forever in the history of Germany. So is it worth it? Like, why would Germany come in defense for Israel and not stick to the principles of Germany and not stick to the reputation of Germany? In my opinion, this is why I criticize the politicians. Like, your job is to defend the national interests of your country and not other countries, and especially if other countries are committing heinous crimes. And even if this other party is your ally, it doesn't make any sense to put yourself in such a situation and put all the historical responsibility on yourself, moral responsibility, and also the legal responsibility. And if you lose this battle, You are putting the reputation of your country, your people, the history of your people in a jeopardy again. That's really, in my opinion, the least smart thing any politician could make. But who am I to judge? I'm just a political commentator, a talking head on Syriana Analysis. By the way, this video is going to be suppressed, guys, by YouTube, and rest assured that when this live streaming is over, it will get demonetized again by YouTube. So I would really appreciate it while you're watching this video if you can just hit the thumbs up, the like button, so that more people can watch this. And if you like to become a supporter of Syriana Analysis, support my work, independent work, you can become a patron, guys. The link is in the description below. Now, to sum up the arguments of Nicaragua at the ICJ, by failing to stop arms shipments to Israel and by Germany removing funding to the UNRWA in the light of the ruling that is plausible, Israel is committing genocide, and on the evidence provided or proceeded by South African that supports that ruling, Germany is in violation of conventions and is complicit, according to the Nicaraguan government. Now, the German government, the current one, I will show you this video. I think this is important. Germany accounts for around 30% of the global arms exports to Israel, and since October 7, they have increased those exports. Today, Nicaragua is asking the ICJ to order Germany to stop those exports, arguing that Germany is fully aware of what Israel is doing and is therefore complicit. Take a look.
A brief review of the reasons why Germany must have had knowledge and full awareness of what's happening and is happening in Palestine is useful. From the first days of the Israeli military actions in Gaza, it became evident that grave violations of international humanitarian law were being committed. Statements pointing this out were urgently made, among others, by the Secretary General of the United Nations on 9 October, by the President of the International Committee of the Red Cross on 11 October, and even at a political level with full participation of Germany in the statement by the High Representative of the European Union on 10 October, all of these on 2023. From that moment, even if the genocidal intent was not yet entirely evident, the grievous violations of international humanitarian law were evident. In practice, it was not even necessary to await these declarations in order to realize that, for example, dropping bombs of 1 ton in densely inhabited areas was a completely unjustifiable violation of the most basic humanitarian laws that had been recognized as such for many years, centuries in reality. If those statements just mentioned were not enough information to trigger the obligatory response by Germany, in your folders is a non-exhaustive list dating from 9 October until last Friday, 5 April, of 32 statements from hundreds of the most respected authorities, organizations, experts, legal scholars, and practitioners on questions of international humanitarian law, calling out that Israel was breaching or plausibly breaching the Genocide Convention and that it was breaching the most important norms of international humanitarian law. All this undeniable knowledge of the situation, Germany's reaction was to increase its military assistance to Israel.
So, according to the Nicaraguan defense team, even though the ICJ hasn't ruled out yet and didn't say that Israel is committing genocide there, however, it says there is a plausible case. And even though the ICJ didn't make its decision yet, and this will take for years, but the objective facts on the ground in the Gaza Strip indicate that Israel is committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. And this is all documented on video by human rights organizations, by the journalists, and recently also the outrage all of a sudden because Israel killed some Westerners in the Gaza Strip. They were working as aid workers. So all of a sudden, the civilized world has woken up. They wake up to the fact that some Westerners are also dying. I mean, 33,000 Palestinians killed in the Gaza Strip didn't wake them up. And then, of course, all loss are tragedy. I'm just telling you the hypocrisy of this case, right? But when the Westerners died, there was a big outrage about it, and they started criticizing Israel in this case, right? And Joe Biden says that he has to reconsider his policies after this, and this case was so clear cut that they have deliberately targeted the aid workers, and with few after few strikes, they knowingly murdered them. And I explained this in a previous live stream why they do that. So in any case, Germany is providing 30% of these weapons, well knowing that Israel is committing war crimes there. So when you do that, you are complicit with these crimes, because there are local laws in Germany and also on the level of the European Union that prohibits these governments from sending weapons to countries or governments that are committing such crimes. And if you see that there is a plausible case that the Israeli government is committing heinous crimes or will commit heinous crimes, you are obliged not to send these weapons to Israel, right? And Israel and the German government, the current one, is doing just the opposite. And ironically, the Nicaraguan team has hired, as I mentioned, the German lawyer, and this is him, Müller. He says that the consul for Nicaragua at the ICJ showing that while senior German government ministers have recognized concerns about Israel not abiding by international law, Germany continues to export weapons and military equipment to Israel that can be used in the execution of those possible crimes. Take a look.
24th March, the federal foreign minister referred to the hell of Gaza and the dire situation of people starving to death. She also underlined that military action has its limits in international humanitarian law. And during her visit in Tel Aviv, Ms. Baerbock announced that Germany will send a delegation to Israel to discuss questions of international humanitarian law, because, and I quote, as a signature of the Geneva Convention, Germany is obliged to remind all parties of their duty to abide by international humanitarian law, end of quote. And still yesterday, it was reported that a group of 600 German civil servants was calling on the government to cease armed deliveries to the Israeli government with immediate effect, exactly because, and I quote, Israel is committing crimes in Gaza that are in clear contradiction to international law and thus to the Constitution, which we are bound to as federal civil servants and public employees. Nevertheless, Germany still has not taken the decision to suspend its military support and the export of military equipment to Israel. Rather, in a recent response to a series of questions asked by members of the Bundestag, the government reiterated its position that export licenses will be considered on a case-by-case basis and in light of specific circumstances. Members of the court, to put it simple, highest German officials have recognized that the situation in Gaza raises doubts about the respect of elementary rules of international law, and that these questions need to be addressed. Yet, while we speak, the export of German weapons and military equipment to Israel, likely to be used for committing these grave violations of international law, is continuing.
So the weapons supplied by the German government continues to be part of the gross violations of human rights in the Gaza Strip by the Israeli government. And one of the friends, C. Hussein, says 480 million Arabs, and it is Nicaragua taking Germany to court. Where are these Arab states? And this is a very good point, and I will explain to you a few things here, my friend. One, There are Arab countries who care about their business relationship with Germany more than they care about the Palestinians. I mean, we know these countries. I'm not going to mention them now. Some of them have already normalized relations with Israel. Some of them have normalized relations with Israel under the table. They don't say it publicly. And some of them wish that the Palestinians would just leave the Gaza Strip and this problem for them would be over, because they want to normalize relations with Israel, and they cannot do that as long as there is a Palestinian cause, right? However, there are also other Arab countries that they don't recognize Israel as a political entity. For example, Syria doesn't recognize Israel as a political entity. So taking Israel to the court, for example, in this case, requires that you have official communication between your government and their government, and you have to exchange documents and have all sorts of communication in the court and outside the court, logistically, politically, etc., etc. So, for example, Syria doesn't do that, and they don't come or bring such a case in the ICJ against Israel. I mean, let alone in my opinion, let's be honest about it, Syria doesn't have that capabilities now to do it. In my opinion, the German case, of course, is different, and the other countries could have taken Germany to the court, and then it was Nicaragua who did it. South Africa, Nicaragua, but this is not the main issue, in my opinion. Whether it's Arab countries or not Arab countries, this is just a secondary issue. The main issue here, you have two countries in the global south. One is South Africa, has taken Israel to the court, and second is Nicaragua, has taken Germany to the court. And this is a representation of what's happening around the world, and especially after the Ukraine war. Increasing number of countries and the people of these countries in the global south have come to the realization that the West is in decline, and the so-called unipolar world and the rules-based order is also in decline. And there are alternative powers such as Russia, China, South Africa, India, Brazil, for example, and these countries are able to provide enough economic assistance to these countries, and the BRICS economic bloc is the future in their own perception. And we can see that Germany, for example, has received a major blow after the Nord Stream pipeline blasts, and Germany's economy is in decline. So I just realized that my light, which is to my face, was almost going to crumble to my face. Anyways. So the increasing number of people in the global south are having the guts and the strength to challenge the Western governments. And for example, if you saw this video of BBC journalists sitting with the president of Guyana in Latin America, and he was he was trying to preach him about environment, and the president stopped him and he raised his finger and you don't lecture us, we lecture you. And this is becoming more normalized nowadays, right? And people are increasingly fed up with the Western preachings and their contradictions and their double standards and their hypocrisy, politicians' hypocrisy, that they preach something and they do something else. So people are just like fed up with this, in my opinion. And this represents the mood, the global mood. Nicaragua, global south, South Africa, global south, they take two big countries that are big in the terms of their influence to the ICJ, and this represents that there is a change in the global affairs, in my opinion. So what do we know now from this case in the ICJ? We know at least three things. One, Germany must immediately suspend its aid to Israel, the military aid, in particular the military assistance. Two, Germany must immediately ensure that military equipment already delivered by Germany and German entities to Israel are not used to facilitate serious violations of the Genocide Convention or international humanitarian law. And three, Germany must resume its support and financing of UNRWA. Now, one of the politicians, German politicians, who has, in my opinion, lots of dignity and lots of honor and lots of What to say more than dignity and honor? Sevim Dagdelen. She is also a member of the parliament, and she says, today I'm taking part in the legal proceedings of Nicaragua against Germany before the International Court of Justice in The Hague as a parliamentary observer. Germany is accused of aiding and abetting Völkermord, means like genocide, and of the violation of the Geneva Convention by the German Waffenlieferungen, which means the delivery of the arms against Israel. Whatever the court decides, it is important that in view of the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, German arms deliveries to Israel are finally stopped. The UN television broadcast live ad. So she is calling for stopping the delivery of arms. And I would like to show you her photo because it's important that we know the faces of the good politicians in Germany and in other places. I salute her really for her bravery. Sevim also says at the hearing at the ICJ in The Hague in Nicaragua's lawsuit against Germany for aiding and abetting genocide and war crimes as well as violations of international humanitarian law, my parliamentary question to the German government was also on the agenda. So she sent an official question to the German government asking for answers for her questions. And her question as to whether the German government would impose a ban on arms exports to Israel in order to effectively support the interim measures ordered by the ICJ against Israel, which are binding under international law, was answered by the federal government on March 21st with the meaningless standard phrase. So she asked the German government that are they willing to impose a ban on arms exports to Israel in order to effectively support the interim measures ordered by the ICJ against Israel. And the German government replied to her saying, quote, the German government decides on the granting of licenses for arms exports to Israel on a case-by-case basis and in the light of the respective situation after careful examination taking into account foreign and security policy considerations in accordance with legal and political requirements, including consideration of obligations under international law, blah, 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 blah. So just word salad. Nothing important, unfortunately. And they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop, unfortunately. And to be honest with you, I live in Germany. I'm not a German, but I'm a taxpayer. And my taxpayer money is going to Israel, right? And I don't want that, right? So what's the solution? If you are late in paying your taxes, few days, one day, they will come to you with what to say, Strafe, like there's something like it accumulates, started, you have to pay more, you know? It's crazy. It's crazy. And if you don't pay, then they close your bank account and you are completely disconnected from the financial system until you pay, right? It's crazy. Our friend and guest of Syriana Analysis, Tarek Chivil Ammar, he published an article on his Substack. He said, historic irony, Germany is being sued over complicity in Israel's Gaza genocide. And I would like just to read a few sentences of this. He says, the ICJ's preliminary finding that genocide is plausible has increased the urgency of the complicity issue. If genocide is at least a plausible possibility, then so is being an accomplice. Hence, the key question becomes how the court will define complicity. It is hard to see how supplying arms and ammunition would not qualify. And he means here about Germany. So after the case of the South Africa against Israel, and when the ICJ said there is a plausible case of genocide in Gaza, then if there is a plausible case of genocide, then there are also parties that are complicit with the genocide because they are either helping Israel or not doing enough to stop the genocide, right? And in this case, he argues that it's hard to argue how supplying arms and ammunition would not qualify as complicit. If the judges follow the plaintiff's key argument about complicity, even to some extent, then every government and international body that has supported Israel during its current assault on the Palestinians will be at risk of facing similar charges as they should be. This potential precedent effect would be a reason for deep concern for the US, Great Britain, France, and the EU as a whole, or at least its power-grabbing commission under the ruthless Israel supporter Ursula von der Leyen. And not only institutions would have a reason to worry, but individuals as well. Some British civil servants are already rebelling because they resent being made accomplices to a genocide. This turn toward a more critical attitude toward Tel Aviv has been catalyzed mightily by the recent Israeli massacre of 7 staffers of the World Central Kitchen Aid Organization. While one of the victims was a young Palestinian, the others were, generally speaking, quote-unquote Westerners. Clearly, these deaths mean much more to Western elites and on the whole publics than those of over 30,000 Palestinians. What many Germans seem to be missing, such as the hapless yet arrogant Welt is a magazine here in Germany, with its blinkered and tired Cold War phraseology, is the fact that Nicaragua is a classical representation of both the global South and the emerging multipolar world. In the shape of Germany, it is challenging and equally traditional, if secondary and crisis-ridden, representative of the West. The fact alone that the West is losing control of both key institutions and narratives marks fundamental change. In the infamously racist terms of EU foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell, the quote-unquote jungle is paying a visit to the garden. And it's the garden that is on the defensive, legally, morally, and in the eyes of most of humanity. I mean, he's sometimes Tarek, he expresses my opinions in a perfect way, and he writes them eloquently. I truly like his analysis. If you like to watch the interview that I did with him, I think around already 11,000 people watched it. You can watch the previous live streaming, guys. It was a great chat with him about Gaza, and I truly respect him. Historian from Germany living nowadays in Istanbul and teaching. He's an associate professor at Koç University. Now that this case has become so blatant and so obvious, and Germany has been taken to the court, right? A German mainstream journalist, after 6 months of the Israeli carnage against Gaza and killing 33,000 Palestinians, 20,000 of them are children and women, he comes with this article and says Israel's response to October 7th was excessive. Finally, a mainstream journalist says something about it, and in my opinion, very little and very late. 6 months after the Hamas massacres of October 7, it is becoming increasingly clear that Israel's partners should have pushed for compliance with international law in the war in Gaza much earlier and more decisively. And in my opinion, the issue with this case is not because in his opinion, the West is losing ground and losing reputation around the world, right? And he says Israeli reaction was excessive because the war affected the residents of Gaza almost indiscriminately, Hamas fighters as well as school children. This was already to be feared in the days after October 7, when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke of powerful revenge and his defense minister Yoav Gallant of human animals in Gaza. Right-wing extremist members of the government expressed fantasies of expulsion and annihilation, including the use of nuclear weapons. And every time a mainstream journalist tries to say something about criticize Israel, they just try to give you the impression that those are just the right-wing extremist members of the government, right? Not other government members as well. I mean, this has been going on for decades. This has nothing to do just with the right-wing or the extreme right-wing. The stated goal, the total destruction of Hamas, was unrealistic from the start. Now that they realize this, it's been like, we've been saying this for 6 months, but it takes 6 months for a fucking mainstream journalist to come and say the obvious. Hamas cannot be destroyed ideologically, he says. It has even gained popularity in the West Bank. To this day, it has not been defeated militarily despite losses. All of this was foreseeable early on. Then why didn't you write about it if this was foreseeable early on, Mr. Mainstream Journalist? Israel would have needed a less absolute, more limited war aim from the start. Okay. Israel's government and army repeatedly emphasize that their actions comply with international law. The facts speak a different language. What is supposed to be compliant with international law about a war that devastates the opposing side's residential area so extensively and in which civilians are killed on an enormous scale? What can be seen is the systematic rendering of the Gaza Strip uninhabitable. This is what I literally been saying for 6 months. According to the UN, 85% of Gaza's residents have been driven from their homes. There is a famine in Gaza. The difference between a mainstream journalist and a respectable journalist is between 6 months and 2 years. The things that we speak about and put our, not our reputation, but rather we come under heavy criticism and even a fear of losing our jobs, our income, etc. when we speak the truth. But then 6 months later, this becomes a normal issue. And the mainstream journalists also jump the wagon and say the obvious. What can be seen is a systematic rendering, as we said. The Israeli attack on a convoy belonging to the aid organization World Central Kitchen, in which 7 employees were killed, is not an isolated incident. The incident shows how quickly soldiers in Gaza pulled the trigger. The international allies, the United States, but also Germany, must not adopt Israel's emotional state. For far too long, they have shown understanding for the unrestricted warfare in Gaza. A democratic state is not a terrorist organization. It must follow rules when conducting war. He cannot punish a population collectively. It also doesn't matter whether the other side started the war when it comes to compliance with international law. Israel's closest partners, the USA and Germany, have not denounced this clearly enough for too long. They should have pushed for this much earlier and more decisively. With their actions in Gaza, Israel's government and army are undermining their own position in the world. This is the put all the article aside. This is the main conclusion of this is the butter of the article. This is what he wants. This is the message that he wants to send to the world. Guys, you have to really put some pressure on Israel, because our positions as Germany and as the United States is getting undermined around the world, and we're losing reputation. This is the issue for them. But in doing so, they also cause massive damage to international law, as if the international law was respected before this, right? As if the United States didn't invade Iraq, as if they didn't invade Libya, as if they didn't destroy Syria. It's like international law was respected, but then Israel a little bit violated it, you know? The international norms and rules that protect us all from the world becoming a hellish place where the stronger is allowed to do anything and nothing protects the weaker. The Egyptian brothers say, aha. Or in Syrian say, sahanom. Good morning, brother. Good morning. We have civil servants in the UK, but also in Germany, are asking for weapons boycott. German civil servants demand immediate end to Israeli arms supplies. Those are around 400 civil servants are asking Olaf Scholz. They sent him a letter to stop this sending arms to Israel. Basically, more increasing number of people are joining this the wagon of criticizing Israel, which is, in my opinion, a positive thing. Now, some of you are asking why Nicaragua didn't take the United States to the court as a complicit or accused of being complicit with Israel in committing or in violating the Genocide Convention. The answer is here. Professor Raymond Murphy explains it all. Take a look.
And for that, we owe a debt of gratitude to Nicaragua. If we get clarification on exactly what it means, what are the states' obligations, all states' obligations to prevent the crime of genocide, and what are the legal implications for Germany and other states that are providing weapons to Israel, now that they are aware that there's a plausible case for genocide and that there's overwhelming evidence of a range of serious violations of international humanitarian law. Viewers might wonder, why did they not take the case against the United States, seeing as the United States is the primary supplier of weapons to Israel? The reason is simple, in that the United States has opted out of the relevant clause within the statute of the International Court of Justice and also the Genocide Convention that would allow such a case to be taken against it, whereas Germany has not done so. And for that, we owe a debt.
So, Germany is a signatory of the Geneva and the Genocide Convention. The United States is not. So practically speaking, it was not possible to take the United States to the court. For now, Let's see what will happen in the future, if there are any other legal ways to bring the United States to the court. And in any ways, if you don't know this, guys, you can go and Google it. There is something called the Hague Invasion Act. And you can search it, and you can search it. And this was adopted after the invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan during the George Bush era. And there is this secret act in the United States that gives the American army the authority to invade The Hague in the Netherlands and free any American citizens, whether civilian or military personnel, if they stand in trial on cases related to war crimes or crimes against humanity. So it's a rules-based order, guys, right? By the way, just for finally to give you some information, the other day I was, this is just a personal thing that happened with me. I got scammed online. I had to sell my old camera that I used to use it as a webcam, and I wanted to buy a different one. And I sold it, and then I wanted to buy the other one, and I got scammed. And apparently this online scam was very professional, and apparently the police is not going to do anything about it. I just received a shoulder tap treatment. Oh, I'm really sorry for your lost treatment when I went to the police reporting about it. And unfortunately, I don't think they will do anything about it. So I had to buy a different one now. And yeah, I hope it looks good. I really care about the quality. I know some of you last time said that they don't care how the video looks. I do care how the video looks. I do care about the quality and the professionalism. And yes, it's on eBay Kleinanzeigen. And the bank IBAN is, everything is clear. The chat, the IBAN and everything. Anyways, it was my fault, but it happened. But I expect from the police to do more, you know? And they told me like, yeah, it's not a 1 million euro case. So I was like, if it's 1 million, then you will move, like you will do something about it, which means like if a rich person got spammed, then you do something about it. But if it's a poor person like me, like poorer person like myself got scammed, and you don't do anything about it, it's ridiculous. Anyways, so I hope it looks good. And we will see you guys tomorrow for sure, 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. American Time. Until then, this week, Pepe Escobar promised me to come to Syriana Analysis. So make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and stay tuned for that. He will either come tomorrow on Tuesday or on Thursday. Let's see, according to his time. I will be very excited to host him again. And if you like to support the independent work that I'm doing here, you can become a patron, guys. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. And I will see you tomorrow. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Salam.